think it's hard to define graphic design because it's kind of always changing context. We design for tons of just different industries and firms, so the content of design is always different, where maybe other professions it's not so much. And then also the format is kind of always changing and adapting with technology, so there's a lot of kind of avenues that design can kind of play into.
It's hard to explain because I like to say graphic designers are problem solvers. That's what our job is. But to say that to someone else that's not a graphic designer, they kind of see it as like, well, I solve problems of my own too.
First of all, that most people just don't know what it is in general. So I think part of it is a communication problem that people don't know what graphic design is. But then I also think that graphic design is really broad in general. So it's kind of hard to like put a label on that because there's publication, there's advertising, there's so many different areas that people are just like, oh, I don't understand because it's such a big field. It's kind of like the general term of science, but then there's also like biology, chemistry, all that other stuff that I think it's just one big weird field.
What drew you to Auburn University?
Well, I'm from Alabama, and I wanted to stay close to home, and it's cheaper to go in state, so that's part of the reason, but I'd heard that it was a good program, and I knew some people in it, so that's mainly my reason.
My turn? Well, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm from Florida, and I wanted to get out of Florida, and I had the opportunity to go out of state, and I didn't know about Auburn's graphic design program, and I came into Auburn as marine biology.
Oh, okay. Well, then what made you switch to graphic design then?
With the help of my parents, the first 2 years, I started doing my course because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my parents knew that I've always had like a creative mind. I've always been interested in the arts, and they helped guide me that way. And so, we both looked into it together, and graphic design was it.
I came to Auburn because, well, before I was at Auburn, I was at community college getting a major in photography, and I decided about halfway through that there was no way I could have a career in photography because there's so many people doing that, and it just seemed kind of natural to go to graphic design because those tend to go hand in hand. And then my dad went to Auburn, and it turned out Auburn had a really good program, so that's kind of why I came here.
I came to Auburn randomly. I didn't really know a lot about colleges until I started applying to them. And when I got here, I had 3 different majors prior to graphic design. And I chose it because I wanted to do something that didn't involve math, something that was creative based, and something that would make money.
Yeah, those are good.
Well, when I first actually went to Auburn, I was thinking about, maybe I'll do architecture or something. I still thought I was going to transfer away, but then fell in love with Auburn, and then I realized that I think graphic design just seemed like it would be right for me. I talked to Jeremy Barnes a lot at the Wesley Foundation, and he was very helpful in that, and I just, I've always loved art, and it seemed like a good way to do it.
Okay. Was graphic design your initial major that you picked?
No, I was originally thinking some engineering thing at Georgia Tech, and then I came here and was thinking, well, maybe architecture because I like math and stuff, and then it's kind of, I don't even know exactly how I ended up at graphic design, but I'm glad that it happened.
Well, I was here for a year before I started the graphic design program, and my sister's roommate was in graphic, and she kept telling me the whole year, she's like, you need to do graphic design, you need to do graphic design, but I never really knew what it was. And so I started doing some research, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty cool. I'm going to try it out and kind of see. So I did my first year, and I fell in love with it. So I really started it not knowing what graphic design really was.
So why did she think you were best suited for graphic design?
I think she could just kind of see like the way I saw the world and a creative view differently from a lot of other people, which I feel like most graphic designers see.
Mm-hmm. So what made you pick Auburn University's graphic design program over SCAD's?
SCAD is the community feels so different. Here at Auburn, it's very, we're like, and this may seem cliche, but we're almost like a big family, I guess. I mean, kind of everybody knows everybody, and we're all tight together. And SCAD's is just really, it's very spread out. I don't know. It was too big for me, I guess, is what you could say. I mean, Auburn, we do have a smaller graphic design department, but one of the best in the country at that. So, I mean, that kind of says something about having that small group. We're like a family.
Auburn's program is structured in a unique way that builds from assuming a student may not have had any art in high school. Their foundation year in our program, they are getting hands-on experience with art and learning the foundations of design and drawing, which are tools they need to continue. Many design programs are really 3-year programs. You spend a year taking core and then you start the program, but Auburn's is structured over 4 years. So the first year they spend in foundation classes. The second year has a required entrance of a GPA that causes students to be much more competitive to get in, and that competition creates stronger student body participation, that students aren't here kind of as commuter students. They show up and turn in their project and then they're gone. They're working together. So after foundations, they take intro to graphic design. To get into those classes, students generally have to have at least B's in their classes, generally B's in their core and foundations, or they usually can't succeed in the program. In their second year, they're put through a rigorous set of courses that are designed to help them learn to take the foundations of design and communicate with them, assembling images and graphic elements together in a way that makes sense and communicates something. The second semester of the second year, they begin to deal more with an audience and trying to talk to a particular group of people rather than just communicate. You're communicating with a group that's in their 40s. What's appropriate visual language for that group? Or you're communicating with a group that you don't relate to as well, that's your parents' age. How do we communicate with them? So in Intro to Graphic Design, we begin to talk more about the particulars of who we're communicating with, not just that we're communicating. After Intro to Graphic Design, students not only have the option or opportunity, but they're required to take a history of graphic design class, which we think is a critical foundation to understanding that the profession is more than just decorating things and making things that look cool, but it's got a long history, and the students realize that they're related to the scribes that created some of the first books, and they're related to the Industrial Revolution and what happened in printing and printing technology, and they also begin to develop a clear understanding of how technology changes and drives graphic design, and graphic designers have to be aware of and up on that. They can't just say, well, I'm just a decorative designer, I'm going to make wallpaper. They've got to be able to keep up with the technology and utilize it. So after their sophomore year, their junior year, they're taking Graphic Design 1, Graphic Design 2, and their senior year they take Senior Project. Auburn has several advantages, is that it had a reputation for a history of a strong graphic design program. Auburn's a charter member of National Association of Schools of Art and Design, therefore it attracted stronger faculty because they wanted to be part of something that already had a reputation.
The thing that sets Auburn apart is its location. I mean, we're not in a large metropolitan area. If you study, the How magazine list of top 72 design programs in the U.S. that came out in 2010, if you study it, then we're a very rural program. We're not in a metropolis at all. I mean, we're in a little town in the middle of nowhere. So we're a practical program. I mean, these kids are coming here because there's a reputation associated with Auburn's program. It's training kids to be prepared for the industry, whether it's in Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham, New York, Minneapolis, LA, Dallas, Austin, Raleigh, Washington, D.C. Any of those locations, these kids are leaving and they're prepared for the industry.
Like beefy cheese dip, which sounds gross, but it's really good. So good.
Really? You can't creep up on me like that.
I'm glad you're like filming that we're talking about Mexican food.
We went to this Mexican place the other day.
It's all part of the experience.
Hey, but guess what? We just turned in our letters.
Yay, letters!
Now what's on the agenda?
Everything else.
Getting off of Pinterest and starting my project.
That'd probably be a good idea.
Yeah, probably.
What's next on my agenda is feel better. Yeah, sit. You can take
Senior project is the final semester of the curriculum, okay? It's a student's opportunity for them to shape their portfolio towards the kind of job they think they want. So we asked them to develop a project and a whole marketing statement stating who their company is or what their organization is that they're working for, what kinds of things they think graphic design can do to help solve the problems that that company may have visually. In other words, do they need advertising? Do they need a new identity? Do they need a web presence? How do those things work together to get one cohesive branding and message out? Okay. And in doing that, then the student can think about, well, what realm of graphic design am I most interested in? We've had some students that want to be illustrators, so they become their own client. They create all their own identity and leave behind and promotional materials so they can get out and start illustrating. We have others that want to be identity designers, so they create an organization, a company that needs the identity, and then how to build that identity out into something else. Or if you want to be a publication designer, you do a series of books. It's really so that you have that individual voice and able to structure your portfolio and also take care of weaknesses you have in there.
So what is your project about?
My project is, well, first of all, it's called Proverbia, and it's about a conservation group who's interested in collecting proverbs and educating the general public on proverbs. More specifically, how important proverbs are to our development as a society in terms of passing on traditions and superstitions and morals and values from generation to generation. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I've ever described it as well as I just did. I'm glad. We recorded it.
There we go.
I liked it. It was good.
Yeah.
Whitney?
My project is, okay, I'm going to restart. For my senior project, I am rebranding the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And what else do I say about it?
My project is called Color Speak, and it's a conference about color, so like color theory and stuff like that. And I really just want it to be like super fun, super bright, like colorful, because that's really what I respond to in graphic design. So I want other designers to kind of respond to the same thing.
Oh gosh. I'm doing an exhibit at the MoMA. I mean, that's just like a form for the exhibit, but I'm doing an exhibit on human expression, dealing with the juxtaposition of genuine emotion and expression versus artificial emotion and expression. So I'm taking all of the photographs, and then I'm doing all of the design work and advertising and posters and mobile app and all that for the exhibit.
Well, my background has a lot of athletics in it, and I played football and baseball growing up, and so sports have always been a relevant part of my life. And growing up, before I guess I knew that graphic design was going to be my career path, I always looked at uniforms, I always looked at athletic logos, and I guess I've just fell in love with that world. So I'm branding a minor league baseball team that I've created myself, and creating accompanying elements that I've experienced through actually going to real minor league teams, and that's basically the main thing. It's very heavily based on branding, and then that branding will carry through the accompanying elements.
Okay, my project is called ALPAC. It's an acronym for the Arizona Latino Performing Arts Center. So I'm just doing the branding and some promotional materials for this Performing Arts Center. It's in Tucson, Arizona, where there's a large, I guess, bilingual population, people that speak Spanish and English. I grew up in Arizona, so that's sort of my interest in this. I speak some Spanish and have always been surrounded by Latino cultures. So that's, I wanted to choose something I'm very interested in and something that would sort of keep me motivated throughout the project.
And maybe just like the color treatment I'm doing, but I really think it's just the A shape.
Yeah.
So that's why I just changed that.
I like this format. I think that other A would look really good. Yeah, a little set like that.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little more approachable.
It seems more simple. Yeah. I want to keep it simple because I've also been looking at cartography, and I like the lines, the small line work in this typeface. I'm going to be using outline, that sort of brings a little unexpectedness, different aspect to it that you don't normally see, I feel like, in a different way than this. So, what do y'all think?
I already said I like that a lot. I think it's really fun, and I think it works really well with like your other typesetting.
Repeating the same thing, it'll just be like on the back or things like. That helps a lot. Cool.
What is it right now? Like, what is the process like?
It's very, like, whenever we first get a prompt or something like that, my favorite thing to do is, like, take 30 or 40 minutes and just kind of sit back and think. I don't look at my computer, I don't think. I just sit there and I have a, like a moleskin notepad in front of me, and I just think. I like to let my mind kind of run free and see the possibilities. I'll write them down, and once I kind of have those ideas I think are promising, that's whenever I start researching them on the internet. Like, say for example, we're doing in Design as Author, we're doing a book. I'm doing my book about unusual words. After I'd kind of solidified that idea that that's what I was going to do, I mean, it's straight to research, learning more about the topic. I think it's important to learn about the topic as much as you can. I mean, because say you're going to take this approach in the real world, I mean, you don't want to have a client go into the meeting and present your designs and don't have a clue about what you're talking about. Like, you have no idea what you're selling here, what you're trying to communicate to the clients. So after that, after I get all my kind of base research, from there it's just like type specimens, type studies, trying to figure out what kind of hierarchy I'm going to take in the project, and then after that it's thumbnails, thumbnail. Like, I can't stress that enough. Thumbnail as much as you possibly can. I mean, that is so important. And then transferring those thumbnails on the computer and making your design the way you want it to be, the way you envision it.
And I mean, I struggled with pretty much everything through the whole thing, and so it's kind of hard to find a balance between all the stars and it being really busy and getting the colors to come through right, and then it was pretty much just a full thing of stars, so it was kind of hard to work with. So I added a planet in here and added some like cosmic dust or whatever, I guess. So I had fun playing around with it, but it was definitely also a struggle to get everything the way I wanted it to. And I use avant-garde for the type, and that's pretty much it.
Comments or observations for Kyle? Suggestions?
I'm really glad he switched to vertical because it just the flow of it it works a lot better vertically than horizontally.
That was another thing I struggled with, was working horizontally. Because I wanted it to be like a full...
Like a panorama.
Yeah. Like I wanted it to feel like a full kind of thing, so I kind of wanted...
Why is it so important to work with your peers?
Because, like me, half the time I don't know anything. Like, I always think I do, but prime example, the logo, one of the logos that I came up with today, it's like a leaf structure kind of thing, and the company name I have is called Inhabit. In a logo, I made the leaf kind of geometric like shape, and I made it an I and then an N coming out of it, and I made them different colors. And to me, I was like, okay, there's an I and an N in there. But I show it to Manny, and he's like, dude, I would never find an I and an N. And I was like, I still like, we're just on different pages. Like, I see it, and probably because I designed it. But I mean, for somebody who hasn't designed it or doesn't understand, they just don't get it. And if I just lived in a bubble and just put that out there, like, see, it's an I and an N. No, it's not. Like, I just see crap. Or like Professor Heck told me I did another like pixel art leaf, and he thought it was 2 cow stomachs, or that's what he said. But it's if you don't have critiques from other people, your stuff is never going to be as good as it can be, because there's always something that somebody else is going to see that's different, or because you're always going to have tunnel vision. You're always going to look at it one way, and someone's going to be like, well, have you thought about this, or why does this do this? It just makes you think more, and it just opens up your mind to other people's ideas, and just makes it that much better.
I'm gonna try it with you sitting right here. Try it. How late were you here last night? This one was oh yeah, on the inside I'm having
All these first, I guess it doesn't matter.
For our posters. Are you doing Swiss?
Yeah? Like what kind of pep talk do you need? I don't need one. You don't need one? They do.
Tell me I'm awesome. That's really all I want.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yes.
My expectations are that I'm going to be stressed out the whole time, because it's just this funny thing of like, you never fully feel accomplished even when you do something, because there's not a deadline of, oh, I turned in my logo, so now that's done. And so it's kind of a funny thing of that. But I also expect to learn a lot and about how it's going to be in the real world, because we may get a huge project that's a logo and a book and a this, and we don't necessarily have a deadline for each thing. And so I think I'm going to learn a lot about that and learn a lot about time management for sure.
I'm kind of like Rachel, but I feel like now we're 3-4 weeks into it, and we're all realizing, crap, we have, 2 weeks until mid-semester. So I feel like we're going to all be losing our minds in the next 2 weeks. But I feel like mid-semester is going to be a very, not calming point, but
settling point for all of us, because we'll be able to sit down with the professors and like really figure out where we need to go from here. And it's not going to be like cramming all of our ideas. Like, we'll just be able to refine everything for the next 2 months, I guess. So I think that's where the real magic of the project is going to come out.
Well, my expectations for the semester would be to finish everything I've proposed in my letter for senior project. I proposed a lot, but it's all things that I really, really want to do, and I have to do them, but I really want to exceed my own expectations, I guess, because I really have this like high level of expectation for my own work, and I always want to do better with each project, so this is it. This is the final one, and so I just really want it to be like, the shining star, I guess, of all the other projects I've done, which it should be. So that's my expectation for myself, is to even exceed what I think I can do.
How are you feeling on the morning of critique?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Nervous.
What are your expectations?
I expect to probably hear a lot of things I already know. I'm looking at the camera, that's bad. I'm expecting to like hear things I'm already thinking about my project. And I'm hoping that I hear good things too, that I didn't expect to hear. I don't know.
Lack of sleep is catching up.
I have not had lack of sleep. I have had lack of sleep. I'm tired. I'm really sleepy. I'm ready to go home now.
What do I expect? I expect the worst, but hope for the best. So I don't cry. I expect to not cry.
Yeah, I expect not to cry.
The graphic design jury show will be the 25th of February through the 5th of March, and the senior show will be the 22nd through the 26th of March. And both those activities are going to take place at the Jan Dempsey Community Arts Center.
Every year, our students, we want them to have the opportunity to see each other's work and to compete for slots. So every year, all of the students above the freshman level compete to have show in what we call the juried show. We, the faculty, jury and select the best work from what the students choose to submit. It has to be work done in the past year. Then we bring in an outside juror who selects award-winning pieces. The students get to hear that professional talk from their point of view. The professional talks about what they saw in the students' work and gives awards. So it's gratifying, and the students get to hear an outside voice and get to hear someone else from a different point of view, and also they get reinforcement for doing good work from somebody else, and that's even more gratifying than from the faculty member they've come to know and kind of taken for granted.
The Auburn Graphic Design program, while it is an undergraduate program, is so distinguished by an incredibly high level of typographic foundation. The variety of work, both illustratively, conceptually, technologically, is first rate, but at its core is this fabulous understanding of typography. Not just the delicate typography that we've seen in the Best of Show winner, but typography that is graphic. Some of it's hand-drawn, some of it is historical in its references, like the Nagasaki poster. It's a cut above. In fact, it's at a very, very high level.
I'm Lionel Ferreira with Ferreira Design Company. Well, actually, I got a tennis scholarship. So I actually did not, those first couple of questions, I didn't actually choose Auburn. You could call it luck or providence, whatever, but I ended up at a place that was specifically a good place for me from a standpoint of having an art department, having a school that would actually take me because I came late. But I didn't actually choose Auburn. I didn't know anything about the design school. But, you know, anecdotally you pick up a lot about, well, what is the school, you know, how does it compare with others? Between Alabama, Georgia, Georgia State, you know, even SCAD. And sort of what I'm hearing is SCAD, it's just very expensive and not necessarily giving you. And then you've got all the finishing schools like Portfolio, which I really don't know that much about, except a lot of my friends do teach there or have. So that's a good avenue once you're done with someone like Auburn. But I really do think that Auburn is one of the best programs with the people that are teaching and what you'll learn there. Just from what I've heard from other folks, the return on investment is very good at Auburn. It is difficult to define until you point it out to people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I tell people what I do and they go, so do you put pictures? I mean, and then I go, all right, grab your Coke can. Someone has to actually clean up and draw that identity, has to pick the picture, the actual colors, had to go on press. They formulate all those things. They had to decide how the thing goes on. And they go, oh, that's what, you know, yeah, that's what we do. I mean, it's like branding is all around you. I mean, every packaging you get, when you get Fab stuff or Banana Republic, you know, it's wrapped, it's branded, and it's got a little card inside. It has verbiage in there. How do they talk to you? All of those kind of things is all thought out. That's design. But you can't really explain it to people. You have to kind of show people, which is kind of funny because we are in a communication business. But folks just don't think that way. You know, I've heard many people say, well, why do I need branding? I'm like, well, good grief, you're a walking brand. We're all brands. But yet they don't understand that they need one or so.
Do you have any last statements you'd like to make about the graphic design program at Auburn University?
Whew. Yeah, I mean, I think you've got some really, really good instructors. I think you've got a great foundation to work on. I would absolutely try and push as hard as you could from a standpoint of real world environment. I would enjoy yourself as much as possible as a student. But really it's about learning. So you need to learn. You need to not only learn about design, but also about the design profession. And I think that I don't know how much they can really do that. That's something that the student also has to just kind of take on their own. And what you're doing actually is probably one of the best ways to do it. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think in the school world, a critique is feedback that you get from your peers, students and teachers, that is supposed to be used for future projects. So, you know, when you finish a project in Type 1, it's not necessarily that you're going to use that project for a portfolio piece, but what they're trying to teach you is that take what you have learned and maybe didn't learn or didn't do from this project and carry it on to the next one. And I think it's important for that kind of critique to go through full fruition in school for when you actually get to the real world, where the critique is going to be, we need this final product for this person, make it perfect. And so I think there's two different kind of critiques. One is to teach you and to help you grow as a student and as a designer, and the other one is to say, this is what's going to make this perfect, do it this way. And I think That's what separates the real world design from school design.
Mid-semester critique is the first opportunity we get to see the whole body of work that each student has created at one time, and it gives us the ability to judge what's working and what's not. Before, we've seen bits and pieces of it during individual meetings, but this is the one time to get it all out, lay it out, and go, this is consistent, this is not consistent, this is off base, this really works, apply what's working to these pieces that aren't working. But it's a chance to redirect a student while there's still time to recover from it and to take the weak projects and make them stronger. We think it's really important for us and for the student, because many times the student hasn't even seen it all side by side until they have to have an excuse to show it, until they have to present it mid-semester, and then they see it and go, oh, I thought I had a lot more than that, or I'm doing better than I thought I was doing. It's just kind of a checkup. Senior project we consider as a test. It's an opportunity for a student to show that they are ready to be mature enough to work in a work environment where someone's not sitting over them telling what they need to do every 15 minutes. The student gets to select the project. The faculty helps them fine-tune it so that it has the best opportunity for success in a semester's worth of work. But then the student is responsible to meet the faculty, to have the appropriate amount of work to show to the faculty, and to take away from that the information they get for the faculty member. And they're also having to deal with a unique set of circumstances where they haven't dealt with designing for a committee before. And that is more like designing for a client, where 2 or 3 principals may have input in the decision-making process. You have to get them to buy in, and you also have to respond to their concerns and try to meet their demands as well, while still coming out with something you're really proud of. And students have to deal with that in their senior semester. So it's kind of like a thesis project.
So what are your expectations for the senior project group, since we are kind of...
I'm a 27A commended.
Since we are doing this film for this group and the design program, I'm going to ask this question again so you can actually answer this seriously. What are your expectations for this group?
Success, all of them being successful. We hate to see a failure at the senior project level, because that's a reflection of us. That's saying that we didn't prepare that student to succeed, so it's a reflection of our tutelage for that individual. So it's a lot of pressure on the faculty. They're not just busting your chops at mid-semester to bust your chops. They have something that they're trying to maintain and hold a line on. And if someone doesn't succeed with it, it's a reflection on them. It's not a reflection on the student, it's a reflection of the teacher.
Usually by mid-semester, a student has learned that lesson, has scared themselves sufficiently that they know that they really got to work extremely hard the second half of the semester if they're going to survive. And they take away more lessons from it than just a portfolio piece. The experience is really as important as the pieces they produce, even though we grade the pieces more than we grade the experience.
Why do you think, since it's always changing in context, do you think that kind of adds into the difficulty of being a designer?
I definitely do. The reason why it's hard to define is also the reason why it's hard to practice. Every project has to be kind of handmade for the client. You can't just, it's not a repeating process. Each one takes a lot of research and, a lot of learning. Each project is a big part of it. So every time you design something, it's very different.
Now, what do you think besides that aspect makes being a graphic designer so difficult?
I think something that makes it very difficult is the amount of work that really needs to go into it and the attention to detail. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes kind of mental work that goes into a lot of design that people don't really notice. Learning about the client, whatever that is, learning about their industry, their company, learning about the style that they want to have and how that can work for them or not, and learning about the typefaces. All these decisions take a lot of thought, and you're trying to get their voice to speak to your concept.
We design the look of things, advertisements, TV spot. So much stuff is involved in graphic design. The opening sequences of movies and TV shows. I didn't even notice it until I got in the program and started looking at things as someone who was steeped in design and learning about it, I was like, oh, like watching TV, like watching a TV show. It's like, oh, that is Helvetica, and they're, you know, the way things, we're responsible for the way that things look in the world, more so than any other career.
Why is our job so difficult as a graphic designer?
As far as communication goes, a lot of times you have to communicate something you don't necessarily believe yourself. Sometimes you have to communicate something you're not necessarily interested in, and that's the hardest part. Is as a creative, you want to gain inspiration from, you know, things that inspire you or interest you, which as a student is fun because a lot of times you can tailor to what you're interested or passionate about. But as a professional, I mean, you have to find a way to become passionate about things that don't interest you, and so in doing that, communicate to the people who would be buying the product or interacting with it. And so there's a level of putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer.
And outside of communication, just in general, why is our job so difficult?
I think it's difficult in the fact that you're getting a lot of different ways of communicating, whether it's photography, illustration, typography. There's just so many outlets to a designer that sometimes it's difficult to really weed through the possibilities and settle on one concept, and in the middle of that concept not changing it to something different. So I think decision making as a designer and editing might be the most difficult.
So you can just go ahead and start stuff that you've changed.
I had to change these, like the titles on them. These were before mid-semester. These are like little monthly tips that they'll get each month. They're really cute. So I just put quotes. Oops. I just put quotes on the front. I mean, nothing really changed on the inside. I might change this orange color, but I just changed the quotes on the front. They're a little bit lighter and they're funny. I changed my book a lot. This was my... This was my book at mid-semester. I had to change the tracking here, and I don't know, I just had a lot of like competing images that I needed to work with. Like we're working as like two separate entities and needed to like make them a little bit more cohesive. And so this is like before and after. So I'm still working on them, and this is before and after.
Okay, you're good.
Is this like what you want?
Okay, so these are some logo not sketches, but mock-ups. And I haven't really decided what I like too much. I don't think I like this triangle. I like this shift up, but we'll keep working on it. I have lots and lots and lots of type studies. So many type studies. Like, it's kind of sad. And different kinds of type studies. I really don't know what I'm doing with this. But I have them. And then what I have the most of, I'll show you. Color study. I have I think this is going to be it. I think this is going to be the color palette I go with. Yeah. But I went through like a whole bunch of different kinds of ideas because I wasn't really sure. Again, this was me trying to see the like relationship between the colors that I wanted. So yeah, and that's just about as far as I've gotten so far.
My name is Elise Thomason.
And who do you currently, I guess, design for?
I work for Iconologic in Atlanta. We're a 30-year-old branding company with a long history of doing work for clients, big and small.
What was the program like when you were going through graphic design? Was it more focused on doing things made by hand, or was it still focused morely on the digital aspect of graphic design?
You know, it was a nice combination of both. When I got here, the computer had been a big force in the industry for several years, but they were still pretty slow. And so we had labs full of computers, but they also emphasized a lot of handwork. And I think that's the real point of difference for Auburn, so that people who come out of here are really capable in different ways. And I still see a lot of handwork in the halls and a lot of foundation level work drawing. So all that was still emphasized then, as well as learning this new medium, the computer. And I think that nice combination really prepared me. It made me feel like, it made me feel like I could do things in the same way that I see a lot of Auburn graduates able to do things, and really kind of scrappy and self-sufficient. You can make an image, you can take a video, you can make an illustration, because you have this combination background of digital and analog. And that was true then, and it's true now.
What else have you seen that makes Auburn stand out as far as other design schools?
Something I noticed from kids who, not kids, but students who have gone through, say, a major in college, say that they were an English major or a history major, and then they decide that they want to do something else, and they end up in finishing school at the Portfolio Center in the Creative Surface, and they study graphic design for 2 years. And I think they end up with a fantastic portfolio and are ultimately great people, because maybe they're a little more mature when they go into the program. However, I think the area where they get cheated a little bit in their education is the foundation, is drawing, perspective drawing, figure drawing, basic hand skills, and because they work in teams, at some schools you might be paired with a writer, you might be paired with a photographer or an illustrator if you're an art director. That's great, and it may make your finished product more polished. However, it doesn't give you that same scrappy self-sufficiency where you've got to write it, you've got to design it and photograph it and illustrate it. So I like to see at Auburn that sense of capability that people get. So a big piece of advice that I always offer students is, particularly Auburn students, is to work really hard. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is something that I've seen over and over and over in my career. All of you that are here at Auburn are talented enough to be here, and that says something. You've passed several vettings of your portfolio, you're smart, your grades are good enough, so you're all talented. And what's ultimately going to separate you in your career and getting your first job and beyond your first job is how hard you want to work at it. How hungry are you at it? And I know that doesn't sound true, but how much you want to stay there and get it perfect and get it just right and criticize your own work is going to have a real bearing on how much you develop as a designer. How much you don't be so easy on yourself would be an advice I'd give any student, really. Be your own worst critic, and that's hard to do because other people are going to want to be more of a critic. It's sort of a cliche that you're your own worst critic. Mostly you're not, but if you can be, then that's a good thing. Another piece of advice I would give, something that I've learned over time, is as a project is progressing, or as your career is progressing, etc., don't fight against forces, but use them. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. And what I mean by forces, it could be ways that the industry is changing. That's an external force that you have no control over. Don't resist that. And that'll never serve you well. But use it. Find a way to get underneath it and push its leverage in your favor. And then the same thing applies, for working with clients. A lot of times clients will have a suggestion that you don't agree with. I mean, that's almost probably more often than not. But if you can hear what they're saying and understand what they're getting at, and decide that it's an opportunity to make your work better, even if the exact content of their suggestion is not that great, then if you can use that force, you can use that energy and turn it on its ear, then that's how you work. That's how you go from being a junior designer to a senior designer, ultimately.
Where do you think design is going since it's becoming so broad?
It's interesting. I think the new thing is going to be the old thing, in that design goes around and comes around, much like trends in clothing, you know. I've noticed people wear flannel shirts and, trucker hats, much like people did in the 70s, and I think design trends closely follow other trends that are going on. So the new thing, graphic design, may be just a reinvention of the old, but I hope it takes a new step forward and pushes those boundaries. And since I mentioned technology, we have all these different avenues to display our work and to make it more interactive for people. So I think we're just going to take things people are familiar with and put them in a new setting with new clothes on.
So I think technology and graphic design is not a bad thing. I think a lot of graphic designers view that marriage as a scary, taboo subject, and it's actually, I think technology is kind of looked down upon as with other graphic designers. However, something that's exciting about design is that it is constantly evolving with the advent of technology and everything, on surfaces, on everything has an interface. That just provides more jobs for graphic designers. And I think that that's something that we should feel empowered. The voice of graphic designers is out there now. And I think that, like Michael said, I think it is in technology. I think that graphic designers need to embrace technology and realize that there is a strong correlation between design, even art periods that are in design now, technology now. Even, for example, Apple's skeuomorphism. For a long time, artists wanted to paint pictures in hyper-realistic form because they didn't have photography. So once they mastered that and they have photography or hyper-realistic painting, what was the next era that we went into in art? It was abstraction, it was simple forms, it was straightforward, just what we wanted to see or just what we wanted to feel. And you see that same trend now in design. We've kind of gotten sick of that. And so I think it's important to realize that there is a strong correlation between art and design and technology, and the sooner graphic designers embrace that, the better off we'll be in the long run.
Yeah, I think there's a large picture of design is going to become more process oriented, and design thinking is like the big buzz, and that really lights the eyes of corporate entities up because they like, oh, this is a design thinking process. It's something that can be more quantifiable. So I think that's one side of it. I'm also really inspired by like the individual just doing it their own, and that kind of comes from maybe more design entrepreneurs. Designers really kind of fitting in with some sort of business entrepreneurial model where they're not reliant on other larger organizations to support them, but they can do it themselves. And that's kind of exciting because technology is so cheap and readily available that we can do this on our own. We don't have to have clients. We can come up with our own projects, our own ideas, and we can make it and sell it and whatever we want to. So,
why is it so important to have a professional relationship with your professors?
There's several facets that play into that. First of all, they've been there, and like as important it is to have your peers, they've gone through this. They've been working with it for years, and even more than that, you're like co-students. They're going to see things that you would never think of. They know things. They know people. They know where to lead you. And we're new at this. We're learning, and it's a continuous process, but they've been learning a lot longer than us. So
they're the ones who are kind of, they're giving you, they're, helping you learn about this graphic design field. And I mean, if you're not willing to work with the professors or, have a good attitude about it, you're not going to get anywhere, because that's going to reflect, like, again, that's professionalism. That's going to reflect on your attitude as far as it'll be whenever you work. What if you have a boss that you don't, well, a lot of us have bosses that we don't like, but I mean, you have to work with them. But I think people take for granted what the professors have to pass on, because they're very intelligent individuals and they know what they're talking about. A lot of people they dismiss that, and they're just thinking, well, no, I know this, but the professor, they're 99 times out of 100, they're going to be the ones who are right.
I think professors are the key to this program in that they're very personable, and they've given these assignments that you're going through as a graphic design student countless times, so they know so many different outcomes, and yet what you bring to the table is different from so many other students before you. And forming a relationship with a graphic design professor is a lifelong commitment, because they can be a reference for when you graduate and get a job. They can be someone who can give you advice as far as what happens in the real world, or what happens in design past and design future. And so, I really love the design faculty at Auburn, where I go for school in graphic design. And there's so many opportunities just to sit down and talk about whatever you want.
They're our mentors, and to have them at basically our disposal, sometimes for 3 hours at a time in studio classes. They've been there, they've done that, they've failed, they've succeeded more times than they failed, and sometimes, and I just, to be able to ask somebody that's been in it for 20, 30 years, the experiences and the knowledge that they have can definitely steer you in a way that can be very powerful to your design.
Why does it take so long to finish a design, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it takes so long, just like we were saying, research. For me, once I have the idea in my head, it really doesn't take that long for me to change everything and get everything the way I want it to be, and then have, people critique it and change that. So starting on a document takes maybe 5 days on, a basic project at most, but I don't know, it really is research. It really is figuring everything out in your head, and then it kind of flows from there. I'm not a person who's big on let me just play around and do something and then print it out and draw on it or write notes on it. Let me get it, let me understand it, let me think through this, and then once it's all there, it just kind of happens really fast.
Well, there's a lot of preparation, and the thing about it is the process really takes a long time. I mean, you have to do your research. You have to understand what you're designing for and what you're designing about. And that's not something you can just crank out in a week. Nobody is going to be able to crank out a solid logo or a brand for a company just within a 2 or 3 week span. I mean, you're going to need some time on that. It's mainly just the process and kind of learning about the product that you're going to be designing for.
Well, it's probably because we do too much as designers, and I'm not saying that the teachers put too much on us. I'm just saying that we literally just try to do too much when we could just focus on one thing. But if you're like me, and no one is, but perfection is a goal of mine, and I think that if you can't ever attain perfection, it's a good thing because it means you're constantly working on something. But like you said, we have to turn in final stuff. So I think for me to turn in something that I'm happy with, I have to get the approval of the teacher, because I think that's important. They're giving us the grade and they're ultimately guiding us through it. But to also be able to just open it up or print it off or look at it and not have this red flag go off. If I can just look at it and be okay with it, even after racking my brain and being what could I fix, then I'm good and I can turn something in.
Because we're perfectionists. We're all type A personalities, and we all want it to be perfect before we turn it in. And so we double guess and triple guess and quadruple guess everything we do. And that's something that I've been asked before is, why does it take so long? Why are you up so late? I'm like, because it has to be perfect. And you print it out and it prints out fuzzy for some reason. And then you print it out again and it prints out green. And then you print it out again. And finally, it's the combination of getting the final print and the final, mounting it to the board and getting the glue to not show through the paper and everything. It takes forever.
Do you ever get frustrated with technology now that's so integral to design?
Yes, absolutely. Printers. Yeah. Every day.
What is happening?
Okay, oh my god, it's 12:02 in the morning, and the only phaser we have available to us right now is out of black toner, so it's not printing at all. And we're all freaking out because a lot of us still have things to print. And so now, the good thing I guess is it's forcing me to work on my web, which I have been avoiding. And now I'm regretting avoiding it because suddenly I've realized that I don't have so much to do on it and it's terrible. So we're kind of panicked. But it's okay. It'll be over tomorrow no matter what. That's all I keep saying to myself is it'll just be done. And we won't have to worry about it anymore. It might suck, but it'll be over. That's all that matters.
So how's it feel to be moments away from your last critique ever?
I'm nervous. I don't want to be nervous.
I'm kind of impatient. I want to be, like, done.
Yeah, I want it to be over with, but not have to do it at the same time.
What is the role of the designer now?
I think the role of the designer is still the same, is to understand society and understand the particular audience and how you reach them, how you communicate with them. A younger audience requires more entertainment, more fast-paced, quick-cutting, loud things. They want more of their senses energized at the same time. You can't talk to that group with really quiet, serene things. That doesn't hold their attention very long. But there's an older audience that all this new technology is a little bit threatening to, and you can communicate to them in a different way. So it's still contingent or important that a graphic designer understand their audience and find the vehicle that best communicates to that audience, and then they need to communicate in a fresh way. If they just do the same thing that all of their competition is doing, they're lost in the hum, in the noise. But if they approach it in a unique visual way, they're more likely to get their audience's attention and be able to communicate something to them. So we're always trying to create something fresh, to the point of oftentimes we're doing things out of novelty to get people's attention when it's not as strong a design. So that's one of the dangers of graphic design, is falling to the novel just because you're afraid you won't get their attention with anything else.
Why is there such a differentiation between the pieces and the experience?
It's so much easier to measure pieces and measure visually how successfully they are attacked aesthetically and craft-wise, and is the communication appropriate. It's easier to measure that than to have to keep a camera trained on a student's desk and say how many hours did they work and how many of those hours were productive and what did they get done. Or did they have viable or legitimate meetings with all four of their committee members. Those things are a lot harder to grade, and you've primarily been graded on projects all the way through, so it's more consistent with what's happened in the past.
So you probably print two more boards, put them on the same color white, 4 more for the sides. And this one gets a hug smudge. Yay, smudges.
Fine. Quick girl can just do some visual research.
The graduating class from this semester, I'm excited for them because had they graduated 4 years ago, they would have had a much steeper slope to climb. Right now, graphic design is projected to grow, I think it was like 16% in the next 15 to 20 years. And that's encouraging to know that our graduates will have more opportunities when they get out there. It's always going to be a competitive field because graphic design is that way by nature. But I see more opportunities for the students that are graduating right now than the ones that graduated just a few years ago. A few years ago, they were spending a little bit more time to find that ideal job or settling for a job that wasn't their ideal but was a paying job. And I think the students graduating this semester have a brighter future or a faster track of getting to the kind of job they want.
It's exciting when seniors graduate. I'm thrilled for them, but we miss them because it changes the dynamic. Every semester a group graduates, we get new ones in and we're excited to see them, but you miss a lot of those that go, so.
Okay.
Best wishes, go for it.
So what are your expectations for the senior project group, since we are kind of...
I'm a 27A commended.
Since we are doing this film for this group and the design program, I'm gonna ask this question again so you can actually answer this seriously. What are your expectations for this group?
Success, all of them being successful.
I can't really say your final thoughts, I guess, because you're not graduating.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, if there were some statements you'd like to say to, the people that, or about the programming,
Mm-hmm.
do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, I think this group, these 27 are really exciting. There's a tight-knit nature between these students. Half of you I had last semester. And I see a lot of promise in each of you, and I see each of you being successful in this field. I don't see any of you going out and starving or having to work at McDonald's to solve, a need for a meal. So I think all of you will do well with that. I don't see that being an issue at all. So the work ethic that this class has is exciting, and to know that I had a part of that preparation is special for me.
All right, and scene. Yeah, seniors behind us, people in design too. What advice do you have for them?
Gather as much content as you possibly can before the semester even begins.
Oh, that's smart. I would personally say don't stress out about the idea because it will eventually get there. But if you put so much into trying to find an idea, you'll just freak yourself out.
When you're trying to figure out your idea, every single little thought that comes into your head that you're like, oh, that might be a good idea for senior project, write it down.
Work hard.
Stay focused.
Don't slack.
Come into studio. I don't know how many people I saw who just you come in. The people who, there are people who
didn't come in, and you could tell. You could tell.
They just kind of slacked off, and this is not the semester to do that.
I think if I could go back, I would be more serious about making a schedule and sticking to it. managing your time is one thing, but like being in studio and not knowing what you're supposed to be doing is difficult. So I feel like if you make a schedule, you make a serious, detailed schedule, and you know exactly what you want to do, and you follow that, and you do say today I'm going to do this, and you do all of that today, no matter how long it takes or how short it takes. You do all of that today, and then the next day you go, okay, today I'm going to do this, but you have it planned out from the beginning instead of just making lists or schedules as you go. I would be more serious about that.
Abandon all of your other hobbies and classes. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but I would say my strongest piece of advice is to listen to your professors and really engage during the class, and I guess even outside of the class when you're working on your projects. Just be very focused and also very open to others' suggestions and advice.
I tell our students that we're kind of a funny family because we spend so much time together. That doesn't mean we all look alike or we all laugh at the same jokes, but we get comfortable with each other enough that sometimes funny things happen. We had a student named Liz. I can't remember her last name now, but we had a large conference room where we used to hold critiques in Biggin Hall, and we were showing the work, and the work was pinned up on a long wall, so it was probably 16 feet long. And we had started at one end critiquing, we were going to the other end, and then we were talking about some student's work, and this student in a chair with wheels on it came flying by backward, and she was just relocating herself to the other side of the room so that she could see the work that was being critiqued. So it's kind of funny the things that happen with creative people. They sometimes, let their hair down a little bit and get a little bit crazy, but it's fun to work with creative people. That's what I would take away from getting to work in this program for a number of years.
That's what's the best thing about the program is we're like our own family, and everybody's here to help everybody else out, and we're going to do what we can to help the other person out and push everybody forward, not just one person or yourself, and that's what makes it so good.
Heck, take one.
Okay. Would you like to share a funny story that has happened to you while you've been in the graphic design program? I know you have some.
I got some bad ones though. I mean,
that's all dependent. That's all dependent on what you want to share. It might make it into film credits.
Funny stories. Okay. Let me think.
I got one. It was 2D design. It was my first year here, my first semester at Auburn. And we were, I think it was the cut paper project, Professor Morgan's class. and I was cutting my paper, and I'd set my X-Acto knife on the table, and it just kind of drifted off, and it landed on my toe. Yeah, it landed on my toe, and it just, and you know, obviously it's gonna cut it, so it cut it, and it was just bleeding, and I looked down, and and I just like keep working on it, and my foot's just bleeding. And Laura Kennedy, who's my cohort, I mean, we knew each other. We'd see each other in the studio from time to time because she was in my class. But she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're bleeding!" So she ran and got some paper towels, and while I was working, she was like sitting there patting my foot with wet paper towels, cleaning up all the blood. Takes dedication. Dedication.
So it's a lot of. It's just a lot of different. It's a lot of.
Well, why did you pick Auburn then?
I picked Auburn because it was the furthest school from where I grew up. And no, let me change it. I don't want to say that. That's true, but let me not say that.
The only really funny thing that I can think of is not the first day of class, but when we turned in our first project with Lori. We were putting up our projects, and my black wasn't a true black on my project. And I said, bloody hell. I was like, oh, bloody hell. And Professor Lori just walked in the room, and she started laughing. She's like, that's a really bad word over in Europe, or over in Britain. I was like, yeah, well, I'm not in Britain. And then I sat down. I think that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, there's one.
My project is methodology. It is a home goods and organization store. Stop, Mike.
What? I'm trying not to laugh.
Gosh. Oh, doing good.
Okay, go.
My store.
I'm not doing anything.
Just act normal.
I'm trying.
Okay.
It's not even a funny line.
I don't know why.
We got
You're
it.
gonna make me cry.
What?
She's lying.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1.
Work hard, try hard. Die hard.
We're trying to get we do it again. Alright, no, are we gonna do 1, 2, 3, and
Yes.
after 3, 1, 2, 3, go?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
I can't. How about I say one part, you say the other part?
Yeah.
What are we saying then? Work hard.
I'll say work hard, you say play hard.
Oh, play
No,
hard?
try hard. Work hard, try hard.
There is no try.
Not play hard.
There was only do.
There's try
Or do
hard. Do hard sounds weird though.
Do hard.
Die hard.
No. No, I like this. I like this idea. Work hard, try hard.
Okay, so who's doing
I'll do work hard.
You guys gonna work together? Or is this
Yes. It's collaborative.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. You do work hard. You say work hard, I'll say try hard.
Are you ready?
Alright.
Work hard.
Try hard.
One night, we got home from the pub really late and decided that we didn't want to go to bed, so we kind of just sat out by the street and talked and just like kind of wore off the buzz. And while we're sitting out there, Brandon Carter had a cup of water with him, and he's just sitting there drinking it, and he finishes it. So he's just sitting there, and we're just, chit-chatting it. And next thing you know, this group of drunk people walk by and just drop like a huge chunk of change in Andrew's cup, Brandon's cup. Because they think he's homeless or something, I don't know. And he tries to give it back, and they tell him no, keep it. And so Brandon made about €4 or €5 just by looking homeless. Oh, it was one of the funniest things ever.
You're laughing.
You're a jerk. You're just like, boom, done.
We're done.
Okay.
Finished. High five me.
Oh.